This is the Global Business Report here on Arise News. Let's look at some headlines coming out of Nigeria with respect to, of course, Geregu's bond payment, the need for more credits to the private sector. But let's start with that. So we had the past and present Geregu chairs meeting, former chair Femi Otedola and the current chair, Senator Abdulaziz Yari, in a meeting that took place in Monaco. And this is, of course, amidst a lot of questions around that bond payment that Chair Yari made himself. So that was that 40 billion Series 1 senior unsecured bond, defaulted, of course, July 28th. And then we got notification that Chair Yari made that payment. But of course, a lot of focus now is on regulators and how there hasn't been any word from the NGX where Geregu is listed, and also the Securities and Exchange Commission. Also in the news, the NICA, that's the National Institute of Credit Administration, wants the federal government to capitalize the National Credit Guarantee Company, the NCGC, with 2 trillion naira, saying that private sector credit is too low. So that's also in the headlines. Of course, SMEs need that. And then, of course, fuel subsidy debate has re-emerged with Atiku Abubakar, former vice president of Nigeria, saying he would return to fuel subsidies if he is elected president in 2027. Arise business analyst Chika Mbonu is with us to kick off the week, looking at these major headlines. Welcome to the show, sir. Good to see you.
Notice, how are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Welcome to the new week.
Oh, yes, so a new week with new things to discuss. I think you want to begin with the SEC and
yes,
Geregu.
The Geregu and everything. Yeah. I mean, we are always here to, I said, educate, inform, our viewers.
Yeah.
Now, but let me put out some things out there. These things are bound to happen.
Yeah.
It is not strange that private bond was issued, and the bondholder and the borrower, in this case Geregu, is missed some payment.
Right.
It is not risk-free. That's the reason why. The only thing that's risk-free in our economic system, we know in Nigerian context, is the treasury bills the Nigerian government issues. That's why also you see that the treasury bills for Nigeria, sells at a rate lower, possibly than this bond issued by Geregu. So it's not strange that the bond, this happened. It happens, but because of the rarity in an economy, that's why this has. And then somehow also because of some personalities involved in it, this issue has happened. What I want to tell you that the important meeting, most important meeting, is not the one photographed in Monaco.
In Monaco.
It's not that one. The meeting that I want to talk about, that is important to Nigerians, the meeting between the company's records and the truth.
Right.
The company's records and the truth. Nigerians need a verified money trail to get to know what is happening.
Yeah.
So the issue for me, therefore, is whether the investors received accurate information, whether corporate funds were properly applied, and then whether the ownership transition was transparent, and whether the regulators acted promptly.
Right.
For me, those are the issues for me in that. And I'm going to look at, because of the paucity of information, we don't have the total information. I'm going to look at what I call the things that don't add up, in this scenario.
Yeah.
And maybe possibly what additional questions that need to be asked. See, Rotus, the regulators sometimes investigate confidentially. They do. So sex silence does not automatically mean inactivity or complicity. But confidential investigation does not justify total public silence.
Right.
For me, once this issue happened, I believe that SEC, should have come out to visibly and responded visibly and publicly and promptly, because of the fact that they need to provide market confidence,
of course,
and transparent information.
Yeah,
and because they're responsible for protecting, investors and enforcing disclosure and preserving the confidence in the market. So that's for me an issue in the whole scenario, that I believe that SEC should have acted more promptly in this and come out to talk about this issue and communicate with the market in various ways. Now, I told you that I'm just going to raise in 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Things I said that, don't add up.
Right.
Or that required, The first one is that the published liquidity versus the missed payment. Rotus. The published liquidity, by December 31st, for our viewers, the company was said to have about 32 billion in short-term deposits.
All right.
December 31st, 2025.
Yeah.
By June 2026, the interim account said this company had about 66 billion in cash.
Yeah.
How come, therefore, that a company that was holding this amount of 66 billion in this and couldn't meet an obligation of 6 billion 1 month after? That's how I told you that things don't add up.
Yeah.
So these are things that will require legitimate explanations. These are things that I believe that SEC should have also followed up to come and ask questions, and so they must be independently verified.
Yeah.
The other thing was that the 32 billion that we talked about, was it receipted, and by who? And that's the issue, for me. And so that question needs to be answered. The other thing is, what happened to the original bond proceeds? What happened to the original bond proceeds? And Rotis, in asking this question, we were told that this bond was raised to acquire Geregu 2.
Right.
Okay? And it speaks to larger things that happen in Nigeria in utilization of bond proceeds in Nigeria. A lot of states in the past issued bonds to do proper projects.
Yeah.
And those projects are not done, and the bond proceeds disappeared. It's similar to this now. So that question needs to be asked and answered. I remember I said, I'm talking about things that don't add up. So now, the accounts now under a cloud, Augusta and Co. withdrew their Geregu rating.
Yes, that's right.
So a rating before, citing both the default and insufficient reliable information. So where are we now?
What do we use?
What do we use? And it's again, see where SEC comes in.
Right.
So what do we use? Remember, this company is traded in the stock exchange. The accounts are not reliable. It does not prove any fraud, Rotus.
Yeah.
But it means the market presently lacks sufficient dependable information to determine whether there was a liquidity failure, a reporting failure, transition dispute, or something more serious. To Augusta and Co. rating withdrawal is a very serious issue.
It is.
So that again, that's when, the ownership transition questions are nothing I said that needs a little more this, So control changed in December 2025. The new owners have been in position for about 7 months.
7 months, yeah.
Before this happened.
Yeah.
So what kind of due diligence did they do when they were, acquiring a company?
Yeah.
Which it sounds, for this kind of massive transaction,
Right.
running to tens and tens of millions of dollars. You can't just say, that we didn't see the deposit there, that's the way it sounds.
Yeah.
Didn't they do due diligence? Who were the accountants? Didn't they verify the cash, before completing the acquisition? Was there any discrepancy they discovered? When any discrepancy is discovered, why the market was not informed earlier? So those are the issues now. So a buyer acquiring a major power company and assuming his abilities cannot simply say, we later discovered the money was not there. That sounds so pedestrian, sorry, and for me, again, so I have so many questions here for the regulator, Rotus.
Yeah.
And that's what I told you, that it is the issue is, for me, the regulator. What could they have done? The first moment this happened, they established the fact. The default was approximately 6.3 billion, not the entire 40 billion. So what payment was missed, why was it missed, and so on and so forth. And the investigation may remain confidential, as I said before.
Yeah.
But the regulatory silence allows speculation.
Right.
And misinformation to dominate the market. And that's what dominated the market. So our rumors have flown everywhere now.
Yep, social media.
Whether you hate somebody or you like somebody, the issue is that it's not good for the domino effect, impact in the market.
Yeah.
So let me leave it at that. As I told you, the issue boils down to the use of the bonds.
Yep.
What was the bond originally meant for? Was it used for what it's meant for? Again, it's supposed to be SEC that will check that.
Yeah.
Was it done that? If it's not done, what has happened? As I said, I'm sure maybe SEC may be investigating in silence. But market thrives on information.
Yeah.
And they cannot continue to be silent.
Arise business analyst Chika. But Chika, we don't have time to get on subsidies of credit, but let's have that conversation later on this week. Okay,
Yeah.
This is a very important topic, and I'm glad you asked these questions to the regulator. Numbers that didn't add up. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.